Good morning. I'm Mike Hergaarden, so I'm co-founder of N2H, together with my brother Matt Hergaarden. And I'm here to tell you our pretty personal lesson. Can the screen switch, please? Yeah? Yeah, thank you. So I'm here to tell you our pretty personal story of how we went from indie in our almost basement up to the, indeed, like Eric told just now, the sale of our Isonzo game and the whole WW1 Game Series. So my background began when my background was started in game devs when I programmed some games at high school. So my background is mostly programming, and I have a passion and specialization in multiplayer games. And of course, nowadays I also do all kinds of business and running the studio. So N2H, the start of it was about 8 years ago when I dabbled as a hobbyist, really. But all these times we've been always completely independent. We never had any investments. We did work with Spill Games as a publisher for a short while, but later on we never made any use of publishers anymore as we grew fully independent. Nowadays, we have an office in Alkmaar where we house our core team of around 6 people. And some of our biggest accomplishments have been listed here, like between 50 and 100 million mobile game downloads. We sold over 3 million units on PCs and consoles and have made lots of fantastic deals with platforms as well. But indeed, the biggest accomplishment of them all was our recent deal where we sold the entirety of Verdun, Tannenberg, and Isonzo as the WW1 Game Series to Focus Entertainment. This deal closed just 3 weeks ago. So these accomplishments look fantastic, but of course it was a long road to get here. And in this talk I hope to show you how long exactly this road was and inspire you to hopefully accomplish the same in a few years. So how did we get here? It all started very small. I have a fond memory of starting the browser-based games I made. It was, for example, Serenia.com, Slavek.com, WarriorFields.com. Even these games gathered quite a few players, a few 100,000, I believe. And this all ran on a web server in the attic of my parents' house. I mean, all good stories start in the garage nowadays, so this one sticks for us. And then around 2007, I discovered Unity. And the moment I saw the Unity Tropical Island demo, which was one of their first demos, I believe, I was instantly convinced that this was what I wanted. I always wanted to make 3D games, and especially these beautiful graphics. Of course, nowadays it's not as beautiful anymore, but at the time it was the best graphics I had ever seen in a browser. The weird thing was that even though we were very early adapters, but at the time, and even 5 years later, Unity was really looked down upon by the industry. But the default was making your own engine or using XNA. And using a readily made engine like Unity was almost laughed upon. That's at least my experience. And of course, nowadays, it's completely inversed. Unity is the default choice with heavy competition from Unreal, of course. But yeah, it's weird to look back on this fact. So then Verdun started in around 2006 when I met Jos Hube at the university in my first year. Of course, also together with my brother Matt. So it was just the three of us making this game. And it was quite a naive idea since none of us had ever made a game of this scale. I made browser-based games, some websites. And for all of us, that's almost the best experience we had, besides some modding. So yeah, we made slow but steady progress on Verdun. But yeah, it wasn't going really fast, of course. On the side, together with Matt, I made a lot of mini-games. We also made our own Unity web portal, since there was no market for Unity web players yet. And I think I dare to say now that making all these mini-games and all the different genres, all the different single or multiplayer games, really laid the foundation for the success of Verdun and the future as well. Since we experienced developing many different games, we experienced the publishing side of games several times, and of course the marketing of all these games. We learned a lot of lessons. For example, when we had to put Verdun on Greenlight, we used our portal Wookly to host a Verdun web player of the game, and that gathered 100,000, maybe millions of views of the game at least, and we forwarded all those to Steam again. So we gathered a big crowd to successfully pass through Greenlight as one of the first games, really. Also, making all these games made us very creative. We rarely over-engineer. We really realized we're here to make games. That's our end goal, and always from the beginning, everything is about finishing and actually publishing the game. over the years, we've also seen a lot of platforms come and go. Think Ouya, GameStick, and seeing platforms come and go taught us valuable lessons. Like, for example, to me, it was not a big surprise that Google Stadia wasn't the opportunity we had to chase, really. There have also been at least 3 gold rushes in my time being in the game industry. There was, of course, mobile, later it was Steam, and after that there was console. But all of these platforms are no longer a gold rush, really. They are overcrowded nowadays. There's way too many games now. So then we're already working on Verdun for 5 years, and around 2011 I finished university, and together with Matt and Jos, we decided to regroup. We were like, okay, we have Verdun, it's like 90% ready at least, let's just wrap it up and finish it. Again, we were still naive, since it took another 2 years before we finally finished the early access version, and even that is, of course, early access and not finished yet. It was still the 3 of us, so there we are at Gamescom in 2013, handing out flyers in the WW1 Game uniforms. It was a really humbling experience. Even at the time, I realized it was quite humble to do that yourself. And for example, also, we booked the Indigo stand, and we were like, okay, we booked the stand, now the press will automatically flock to us. But of course, in hindsight, that's really, again, naive. I'm not sure when the story starts getting less naive, but it will be, it will be. The biggest challenge at the time also around the launch of Verdun was supporting. We had no experience with that. So this first time we made use of abstraction games to create the first Xbox and PlayStation port for us. But we wanted to do more around porting and decided to completely redo the port ourselves. And after that moment, we now do all porting in-house. And actually, I don't see it as porting anymore. Nowadays, we try not to do ports, but always integrate the consoles in early development as early as possible. And last but not least, of course, a huge honor was in 2016 when we won both the Best Economic Achievement here and the Control Industry Award at the Dutch Game Awards. So around the same time of the Verdun launch, we finally rented our first office for M2H on the top left. It was a small attic, actually, in the city center of Alkmaar. But then it was just Matt and myself in this 90 square meter office, just 2 minutes walking from both of our houses. And it took us 4 years before we finally made the step to staff and interns. It was a deliberate decision. We wanted the freedom. We wanted to be able to scale. And probably we didn't dare to dream big yet. But we did make use of a lot of freelancers already at the time. So yeah, Alkmaar has always been our hometown. We quite like it there. But unfortunately, there's not much of a game scene. There's just us, Blackmail, and Game Media. So it was unfortunate we couldn't easily visit all the Dutch game events that easy. But it did strengthen us, I believe. We are fully self-dependent, can fully rely on ourselves. And then in 2020, we bought and built our own office, which is pictured on the top right. And that's where we now have a cozy place for our staff of 6 and still make use of freelancers. But just, yeah, we're making the switch to more and more core staff instead of 100% freelance. We're trying to go probably 50-50 or something. This is a huge contrast to our WW1 Game Series team, which is completely freelance, completely international, and it's about 20 extra additional people. So after the success of the Western Front from Verdun, of course, the logical next step would be Tannenberg on the Eastern Front. The funny thing is, this actually started internally as a DLC idea. But luckily, after half a year or so, we made the decision to switch this to a full game, and I'm happy we did this, since it deserves a full game launch. The WW1 Game Series brand was made at the same time. It didn't make a lot of sense to us. I believe marketing coined this idea, possibly Jos. But in the end, it was really, it really needed, since we had this cooperation with Blackmail, being 1/3 of the series, made the communication a lot clearer, and especially in light of the recent acquisition, this was a big requirement. So Tannenberg was not that successful as Verdun, and we thought long and hard on why this was. Since initially we were convinced this was the better game, it was once again improved on all fronts. But we think the competition of the game market just got a lot tougher. At the time of Verdun, there was just a few game launches per day, and nowadays there are, of course, hundreds per day, I guess. And furthermore, there's also been the team, the bigger battlefields where you would have to walk more of a walking sim, and the graphics attract a bit less, I guess, with the wintry, darker teams. So we took a lot of these lessons and put these in Isonzo, and that seems to have paid off a lot, since Isonzo's sales and reviews really reflect that this was executed correctly this time. So to show you how we've always been split between the WW1 Game Series and our own M2H project, this launched between Tannenberg and Isonzo. It's Crash Dive 3. It's more like a childhood fantasy of ours. It's a game we would have loved to play ourselves when we were 10 or 12. Just pure fun. You can drive monster trucks in crazy vehicles, enter a rocket, fly to the moon, and drive around there. Yeah, it's really fun. But despite this being such a lightly themed game, it's really heavy on the technological side, since it was an insane launch again. But typically for us as M2H, we launched it on 10 platforms on release day, so PlayStation, Android, console, PC, yeah, pretty much any platform you can think of. And it was also fully cross-platform. So Android could play together online with PS5, Xbox, Epic, etc. Then just 3 weeks ago, we launched Isonzo. The release exceeded all our expectations. We had big expectations, and then it exceeded that again. So that was awesome. It's also, after our experience with Crash Dive, the first sim ship we did for the WW1 Game Series. And of course, it has improved on all platforms again, on all aspects again, the graphics, gameplay, whatever you can think of. But at the end of this development cycle, it was Matt who coined the idea of exploring a possible sale around last December. It was great timing, since back then you heard about acquisitions in game companies almost every week, I guess. And it took us 9 months until last September for us to close the deal, which happened the day before Isonzo launched, which was, of course, no coincidence at all. For us, for M2H, there's now a small transition period where we help shape the WW1 Game Series further. And any other changes will be that the company behind these WW1 games will now be renamed Blackmail Games and will be led by Jos. One thing that's a bit a pity for us now is that I observed while making these slides and during the recent acquisition that the bigger we got, the easier everything actually got as well, which is quite unfair. But nowadays, the platform started to approach us more and more. So when the PS5 dev kit secretly launched, we already got the secret dev kit shipped to us, instead of having to beg for this, for example, or the Steam Deck, same thing. Same with sales, they will ask you for sales instead of vice versa. So I'm really curious to see how this will be getting more of a challenge for us again, lacking the bigger games. So the main takeaways of the lessons and the road I had to this AA title. Oh, by the way, I'm calling us AA not because I believed in it myself, but because Focus Entertainment announced us as a AA title in their press releases, so that gave me the validation. I never realized we were AA yet, but yeah, here it is. So when I look back on my story, I extracted 3 lessons, really. It's always to check with yourself, what is my goal? Do you want people to play your game? Or do you just want to make a game? I often see people redoing a lot of their tech stack. They make their own engine still, while it's 2022 right now. Of course, for Guerrilla, it's a different thing. But for us, at our size, it's, for me, crazy to still be making your own engines. And the second would be, of course, do seek advice, but stay true to yourself. I often see people asking questions to different companies, which is a great thing to reach out. But in the end, do stay true to yourself, make your own lessons, so that if you meet any failures, you also know where it came from, and you have more information that way. And the last mantra, fail fast, fail often, is something I live by, but of course it's not about the failing at all, but attempting often. That is what paid off for M2H a lot, making all those mobile games, making all the mini games. So yeah, I think the third one is actually the strongest for us, at least. So what's next? After the sale of our biggest games, we have a few months of transition, of course. But that's not all. We have a secret project, a secret game in the works already by our team at the office. And I wanted to show you a teaser of this. It's a multiplayer RPG. Despite being very early in production, I'm excited to maybe hear your first impressions later today when you see us. Do let us know, so enjoy. Thank you.